Welcome to Fan Fave with Katrina.
Fan Fave with Katrina.
It's time to talk pop culture.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Katrina, and this is Fan Fave, the ultimate pop culture podcast for fans of all forms of entertainment. If you love music, television, film, theater, or anything in between, you're in the right place. Welcome back. Sunday, June 16th was a big day for theater kids around the world. It was the day of the 77th annual Tony Awards. Today's episode, we're going to be recapping the big night, the good things, the bad things, and the questionable moments. I'm talking about them all. But first, let's do a pop recap to talk about some of the trending topics in the entertainment world. First, I want to chat about All Things Go. All Things Go is a music festival. I think I talked about it a little bit before, either on the podcast or in the newsletter or on social media somewhere. The music festival has historically been held in the Washington, D.C. area, which is my hometown, although I've never even been. This year, the festival is in September at Merriweather Post Pavilion, and it has a pretty killer lineup. For the 2 days that the festival is happening, just to name a few of the people that are on the lineup, it has Bleachers, Leve, Janelle Monáe, Hozier, Chappell Roan, Maren Morris, Renee Rapp, Conan Gray. Like, it's pretty stacked, and it's sold out. Like, it's sold out so fast as a result of that. And many people in the DMV area were pretty frustrated about it, myself included, because we couldn't get tickets, and so many people are coming in from other states and all over the place, which is like fair. I mean, if I saw a music festival in another state, then I would go, you know? But people were saying that they wish that because the festival's branding has pretty much been centered around being a festival for DMV locals, that they should have just done a better job for those in the area by maybe having like a DMV exclusive pre-sale or something like that. So there's been a lot of frustration from fans down here. And you guys, things only got worse because they added an All Things Go New York. Now, this festival will happen the exact same days as the Maryland Festival, and they actually do share a pretty similar lineup. I mean, I still think that Maryland has the better lineup because New York does not have Hozier or Bleachers or some of the other people, but like they got Muna instead, and they do have Chappell Roan still, and Janelle Monáe and Renee Rapp, so it's still a good lineup, but it is a lot fewer artists that are going to the New York Festival compared to the Maryland one. The New York All Things Go is taking place at Forest Hill Stadium, and like Maryland, the tickets went extremely fast. If you want to go to either of these festivals now, just expect to pay crazy money on resale. I have to say, I do question a few decisions with the moves at this festival. I mean, if you go on their Instagram, there's pretty much zero positive comments on their posts about the festival. It's pretty bad. A lot of fans are really mad, so that's why I think it's worth talking about on this podcast because it's causing some serious controversy online. But I'll say as a DMV local who had an interest in going to the festival and couldn't get tickets, I really wish they would have announced this New York version earlier because there's a lot of New York people that got tickets to the Maryland Festival when if they were announced at the same time, they could have just gone to their own. That would have just helped to service the DMV locals better because it would have been a lot less demand maybe, even though like the Maryland lineup is low-key better, but still, like some people probably wouldn't have come down to Maryland if they could just go to New York. And then I also do just kind of question, like, why would they do another festival so close to their original one and on the exact same dates? Like, when they announced there was going to be an All Things Go in another city, I thought, okay, like maybe they're going to go to California or something, like an All Things Go East Coast and now an All Things Go West Coast. But no, it's the same exact days, 3 hours apart. But I don't know, I can't speak on their decision. I don't know who the promoter is or why they made that choice, but I do think it is quite a choice. I will say I did attempt for tickets for both versions of the festival, and my new enemy is AXS. Like, if you think Ticketmaster is rough, try AXS. And I'm not familiar with AXS. I have used it for 2 things in the past month, but like never ever before then. And both times have been very confusing, terrible experiences. Maybe because I'm used to Ticketmaster on sales, but I don't know. I don't like. There's no indication of how far along you are in the line, minus a little walking man. And like versus Ticketmaster, they tell you your number now. And I mean, it's not always a good number, but like I'd like to know. And then when you try to refresh for your tickets, it will kick you out after like 5 times. It suspects you're a bot like immediately. And I'm not a bot. I'm just trying to refresh to see if more tickets will pop back up. And then they lock you out and you cannot get back in. But I'm sure they did let some bots through, because I mean, look at the resale sites. There's plenty of tickets on resale that just immediately went there. And the fact that it happened with both of the on sales that I did, because I did it for Chappell Roan, like her Lollapalooza after show that she's doing, and it went so fast, and then I got locked out because I was, quote, a bot. And then I tried it for All Things Go New York, and I took me forever to get in for the first thing. And then when I got in, bot again. I'm a bot. I'm not a bot. And they make you solve like this puzzle to get into. Like I'm stressed and they want me to type out a combination of letters and numbers. It's too much. So I do not want the experience of having to use AXS ever again. That's all. Anyways, let's talk about Chappell Roan. Who doesn't love Chappell Roan right now? I think her rise to fame has been so interesting. I mean, her debut album that came out in October of last year is just now cracking the top 10 in Billboard. I discovered her earlier this year in like January or February because she was the opening act for part of the first leg of Olivia Rodrigo's Guts World Tour. And I thought she was going to be the opener for my show because before I got tickets for DC, I was actually looking at going to Nashville or the Madison Square Garden date. And I was talking to my friend about her and I was like, you know what? Let me listen to her. You guys, she was my most streamed artist in February, March, April, May. Like I immediately fell in love with her music. I was hooked. And I remember when I heard the debut and I first followed her on Instagram, I was like, she's about to be a star. Like this album is solid. Y'all, I screenshot her account when I followed her. She had 320,000 followers, which that is a lot, but not really because now she has 2 million. Like she has grown 6 times more followers since I discovered her 5 months ago. And the demand for Chappell Roan is insane. I mean, everyone is talking about her online. Unfortunately for good and for bad. Like I saw people calling her an industry plant, which doesn't even make any sense because she's been in the industry since like 2017. But anyways, at her concert in North Carolina, she actually talked about this and how overwhelming and almost stressful all of this has been and kind of taken a toll on her, just how quick her rise to fame was. And I really hope that she does have a good support system to help her navigate through all of this because I'm like her age and I don't think I'd know how to cope if something like that just happened to me. But I was thinking about it and I was like, what is it about how fast she has blown up that feels like almost unprecedented? I don't know if that's the right word to say, but like as if it's never been seen like this before, because it has been seen like that before, but people become overnight sensations all the time. I mean, I was looking at Olivia Rodrigo the other day because someone made a joke tweet about like what you would show as proof that you're the biggest Olivia Rodrigo fan or something like that, like your Olivia super fan card. And I found this screenshot from like 5 years ago or whatever when she had like reposted one of my tweets about her. And in this screenshot, you could see that she only had like 20,000 followers at the time. And I was like, whoa, like I was following her when she only had 20K. She has 20 million now. And for Olivia, I mean, driver's license blew her up pretty much overnight too. Like it happens all the time. But what's interesting with Chappell Roan is that it's visual. You know what I mean? Like it's not like we're just watching numbers grow, like how I said she grew 1.6 million followers in 5 months. It's not like we're just watching the charts and seeing her songs start to rise up, but it's like you can physically see the juxtaposition in where Chappell Roan's team and really the industry thought her fame level would be right now versus where it actually ended up being. Because 3 months ago, she was an opening act for Olivia Rodrigo, which even there, I remember people got mad at Chappell Roan because she talked about how the crowd was pretty dead for her, like they were a bunch of 9-year-olds or something. And then right after that, she finishes opening for Olivia and she goes on her own headlining tour in these super tiny venues. Tickets that were $30 for that tour are now being resold for $400 and $500 and $600. And don't let the venue be outside, because if you get on TikTok, you'll see people on boats, on bridges, on rooftops, anywhere to catch a glimpse or just hear Chappell Roan because they couldn't get tickets to her 2 small venues. And then she's playing these music festivals where she was booked on smaller stages for some. Like Bonnaroo, she just did in Tennessee. They had to move her to a larger stage for safety reasons. And it's just so funny. Like, it's like on a Wednesday, she'll be playing to a crowd of like 1,000 people in a theater for her headline tour. And then on a Saturday, she'll be at a music festival playing to 50,000 fans, screaming along to every single word. I mean, look at her Governor's Ball set. Look at Boston Calling, where she had more people attending her set than they did the headliners, which were Ed Sheeran, Hozier, and Megan Thee Stallion. The back and forth between the crowd sizes must feel so crazy, but I mean, it's deserved. I think people have been waiting for someone like her. The costumes, the catchy pop tunes, songs the crowd can dance in unison to, like, she's just so much fun. The next thing I want to talk about is Taylor Swift, because Taylor Discourse is back. It's almost time for Reputation Taylor's version, I think. This time it's about the charts. The Tortured Poets department is absolutely dominating the charts, and whenever another pop star is releasing a new project that could threaten its number one spots, Taylor Swift releases a new version of the album. Essentially, the new discourse is that people are calling Taylor Swift greedy and selfish for the move. Now, before I get into my opinions on this very heavily trending subject, let me start by asserting my biases and where I stand, from like a general standpoint, to be transparent or whatever. I am a Taylor Swift fan, not a Swiftie, because Swifties have a negative connotation now, and I do not want to be grouped with crazy fans. I am a completely normal, casual enjoyer of Taylor Swift music. 2, I do not care about charts. I cannot tell you who is in the top 10 right now. This goes for movies too, really. I don't really care about box office numbers. It's not something that I follow. Music records, they're not really interesting to me, especially when you look into situations like what people are talking about right now. Numbers are all a game and a gimmick. Things can be manipulated. I haven't cared about that stuff since I was like in middle school, trying to help One Direction beat the Vivo record. Like, that's old. That's old stuff to care about. I don't really care about that now. I just feel like they aren't really a true level of monitoring value in a piece of art. So that's how I feel about that. The third thing that I would like to say is that while I am a Taylor fan, I have not been paying attention to these variants. In fact, I cannot name one. I don't know how many she's put out. I don't know what's on there. I haven't bought any form of the Tortured Poets department. It's a lot, and I've always been like that too for any artist. Like, I don't often buy physical music. I mean, I enjoy collecting records and such, but like digital versions or CDs, not really something that I do. And for vinyls, it's never different versions of the same album. For any artist, I've never been into that. I just buy the album, whatever version I have is the version I have. So quite frankly, I just have not cared about these variants going around, and I happily stream the Tortured Poets department for free on Tidal. The last thing, I do like Charli XCX and Billie Eilish, who are the two main names that are being thrown around on the internet with this situation right now. In fact, I actually think Hit Me Hard and Soft is the best album of the year out of the main pop girls so far. Love that album. So yeah, I guess even being a fan of Taylor the most out of the three, I'm about as neutral as I can be. So now my thoughts. I see nothing wrong. I mean, you guys, I get it. I really do. But here's the thing. This is a music business, and we can't get mad at an artist for playing the music business game. I mean, it's a smart business move. And she didn't invent this system. This is just how it is, and she's just playing with a strategy. Is she supposed to sit back and just let somebody else have the number one spot? I mean, no one sits back and watches the Chiefs and says they're selfish and need to stop winning Super Bowls. Step aside. Let the Ravens be number one. Give someone else a chance, you Disney World chip-hungry millionaires. No one says that because it's a sport. You're supposed to be hungry for another win. And the music industry is a business like that too. Taylor has literally always said in interviews and in her documentary that she craves numerical validation. Like, remember when Reputation didn't get nominated for a Grammy and it was like a huge deal to her? So she was like, well, I just have to make a better album. Like, it's so serious to her. And then to add another layer, I saw this TikTok that spelled it out perfectly and I just agreed. So I'll summarize. Essentially, I don't even think it's Billie Eilish or Charli XCX or SZA or whoever else that Taylor Swift is competing against at this point. Her legacy, longevity, previous chart success, and cultural impact is statistically on a much larger level. I feel like it's not about who has the biggest number one hit of June 2024. It's about 10 years from now, what records has she broken? Do you know what I mean? Like, how is the longevity of these records going to be? You know what I mean? So whether you like it or not, the peers whose records she's actually competing with, it's not your Billie Eilish, it's not your Olivia Rodrigo, it's not your Charlie XCX, it's Michael Jackson, it's the Beatles, it's real music icons that have done this for like years and years and years and years. And that's not to say that Billie Eilish or Charlie XCX or whoever else is not able to be on that path as well, but Taylor has been in this industry and established herself much longer than all of them combined. Those are the chart records that she's going after, though, and she's on a mission, and she's just playing the game. And for what it's worth, I did see a TikTok, and someone broke down the numbers. Taylor's streams are actually what's keeping her at the top, not the variant albums. Ultimately, she actually had more streams than Charli XCX did because she has the bigger fan base. So even if she didn't release the variants, it's really likely that she still would have beat out Charli XCX for that #1 spot in the UK. So I don't know, y'all. It sounds like another era of people wasting their energy to complain for nothing. Anyways, let's get into what I've been into in the pop culture world since we last spoke. First, I went to 2 WNBA games, and I have to say, I feel like women's basketball in general has gotten a lot more attention lately, which is amazing. But especially with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, the hype has been through the roof with them, and that's exactly who I got to see. I saw the Chicago Sky play the Washington Mystics, and then I saw the Indiana Fever play the Mystics as well, both here in Washington, D.C., and for both, the demand was so high that they actually ended up moving the game to our larger Capital One arena that the men's basketball team usually plays out of, because the women's arena that's smaller sold out so fast. I was rooting for the visitors in both games because, I don't know, I have no loyalty to my hometown team, sorry, but the Mystics did lose both times, and I wasn't mad about it. I was there for Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese anyways. They were fun games, though. What I like about Angel Reese is that she just goes for it. Like, she's a very aggressive, dedicated player that's always going to get the ball and go for it. Like, I just loved her energy. She's such an interesting player to just watch. And then Caitlin Clark, she's also amazing, a fantastic shooter. Like, she just kept hitting 3-pointers back to back to back. It was crazy. And then I think she came super close. I think like 1 or 2 points off from beating her professional record for the most points that she scored in a game. This was like a little while ago, so she might have beaten it by now, but I think it was like 30 points. She was killing it. Another thing that I did since we last spoke is I attended the I Got Away tour. This is a concert featuring Dietrich Haddon, Pastor Mike Jr., Brie Babineau, and Anthony Brown. And you guys, I had a really fun time at this tour, and I got to meet with Dietrich Haddon again. If you follow me on social media, you know that I attended a couple of his listening parties for his most recent album, One Night in California, which I totally recommend. But his live concert is so much fun. I mean, he is definitely one of the most high-energy gospel performers out there. There's dancing, upbeat music. He even did this thing where he had random audience members sing a solo on the spot. Like, I love when artists do that. It's so much fun. He also performed He's Able, which is one of my favorites. I'll probably post a video of that one on social media, so make sure you're following because I'll be putting up stuff from that event. But yeah, overall, I had a really fun time at this tour. The last little fun thing that I did since we last spoke, I went to New York again. And you know, you guys, I'm always in New York. I'm always like back and forth between DC and New York City. It's like my second home. I did a little day trip because I could not miss one of my original Broadway favorites, residencies. And I'm talking about Ben Platt. For those that don't know, Ben Platt actually did a 3-week, 16-performance residency to open the historic Palace Theater on Broadway. The Palace Theater was actually closed for renovation for a few years. They literally lifted the theater up several flights in the air as part of that renovation. I've actually been a fan of Ben Platt for a long time. Like, my freshman year at NYU, I discovered him and Dear Evan Hansen, and then I loved The Politician. It's an underrated Netflix show, so I am now sharing that recommendation with you. Go watch The Politician. I finally had the opportunity to see him in a Broadway production actually last year with Parade, which he was absolutely phenomenal in. That was just a fantastic show overall, one of my favorites that I saw last year. But I was definitely intrigued by the idea of him doing a full concert. And one of my friends from high school actually reached out about going, so I went up with her to check it out. I had a really amazing time. First of all, let's have a little moment for the Palace Theater. It is a beautiful and intimate theater. I sat in the orchestra and it's so nice and new. Like, I just loved it there. Also, shout out to the Palace because I don't really drink alcohol, but I love slushies. And a lot of the time when I go to like adult events, like a concert or some Broadway shows, they'll have a slushie machine, but the slushies will be alcoholic, so I never get them. But the Palace Theater, they have non-alcoholic slushies, and I was very grateful for that. Like, you guys do not understand. I got a lemon lime one, which was tasty. It was a little sour, but tasty. And it came in a souvenir cup too, so it was like $9 well spent, if you ask me. One thing that I have to say that was interesting about this show is that the vibes were confusing. It was a little bit weird because it's in between being a concert and a Broadway show. You know, it's in a Broadway theater, you get playbills, there's ushers and all of that, but then it is a concert. So I guess the etiquette felt confusing because what's not usually tolerable for an audience member to do during a Broadway show is actually completely tolerable here at this concert. And that felt weird because we were sitting in the setting of a Broadway show. So Ben Platt often had to remind the crowd that, you know, you can take photos and videos. You are allowed to sing along like it's a concert. So that was fun. The entire show, Ben Platt has his band on stage and he's kind of telling a story through his music. He walks you through the different eras of his career, like Pitch Perfect and Dear Evan Hansen, and even Theater Camp, which is one of my favorite projects that he's done. He also tells us a little bit about his personal journey through music and how he navigates mental health and romance. So he stops a lot to tell stories in between songs, which I really enjoyed. I think it's always nice to be able to hear kind of like an artist and talk kind of like an artist and what they get their inspiration from and what drives the music that they make. Each performance had a special guest, and as he got down to the final shows of the residency, some performances were lucky enough to get 2 surprise guests, and that was the case at the show that I attended. Our first special guest was Michaela Diamond, Ben's co-star in Parade, which I never expected to see them 2 perform together in that context, but they performed a beautiful rendition of All the Wasted Time from Parade. They actually told a story about how, well, first until that night, Ben hadn't performed anything from Parade during the residency. I think he usually sang a song from like Dear Evan Hansen or he switches it out or something. And he really wanted to touch on Parade sometime during the residency. But also the last time that they performed that song was actually during the closing night of Parade on Broadway. And they like sobbed through it when they did it because it was like the closing night. And so they were like, we're going to sing it again tonight so we can do it. It's full justice. And they really, truly did. I mean, it was amazing. Such a good performance. I posted a clip of it on social media so you can go check it out. Our second surprise guest was Shoshana Bean. She was actually the first and only guest at the residency shows that is currently starring in a Broadway show. She's actually in Hell's Kitchen on Broadway, and I attended the 5 p.m. Saturday performance, which is like in between Broadway shows, usually like a 2 p.m. and an 8 p.m. on a Saturday. So Shoshana actually came in between her matinee performance of Hell's Kitchen and her evening performance to perform with Ben for the show. And they sang As Long As You're Mine from Wicked, which was absolutely incredible. Like my jaw was on the floor. It was so beautiful. For those that don't know, Shoshana Bean was actually the first Broadway replacement Elphaba in Wicked all the way back in 2004. And she's still on Broadway killing it. Overall, I was super entertained by Ben Platt at the show. I mean, he can sing, and we knew this already. He's amazing. And he also did a little bit of dancing too. Like, he came with the full theatrics. He did perform some covers also, just paying homage to some of the Broadway women who performed at the Palace before him, like Liza Minnelli and Judy Garland. He also performed his cover of River from The Politician, which I loved so much. Some of the other favorites for me live were I Want to Love You But I Don't, Shoot a Drop was fun, his cover of Over the Rainbow, and also All American Queen. But yeah, Ben Platt has some serious bops, like do not sleep on his non-Broadway music. I had so much fun. His new album Honey Mind just came out like a week ago. Those are my thoughts. Make sure you're following on social media because I will be posting a vlog soon. I already posted some videos, but vlog coming soon too. Now I'm doing round 2 of this new thing that I started on our last episode. It's my pick of the week where I pick one little pop culture favorite thing in the music, television, film, or theater, or anything else world. that I am absolutely loving, cannot get enough of. And this week, my pick of the week goes to Ray. So Ray is a musician, and I've heard her name around for a long time. I've never seen her in concert before, but she has been an opening act to some of my favorite artists. And she also was recently the musical guest for an episode of Saturday Night Live this past season. But most recently, she just released this 7-minute song. It's called Genesis, and it is phenomenal, you guys. First, I want to say I think it's so smart that she actually released this song as like an EP package, and I'll explain that a little bit in a minute. But Ray, she takes listeners through a variety of genres like pop, R&B, and jazz. Like, it's a full journey. It's one song, but then she also released each portion separately into 3 parts so that fans have the choice to stream their favorite parts solo if they want. So for example, Genesis Part 2, that one is more R&B. That's my favorite out of the 3. And so you can just listen to that separately. And then you have like Genesis Part 3, which is like more jazz, and you can listen to that separately. So it's really cool because you can listen to the whole project, but then you can also just like pick out your specific parts because they can stand alone as their own songs. The lyrics in this song are also super powerful. I think Ray does a fantastic job at articulating the troubled thoughts of someone in their 20s, from anxiety and stress to social media addiction and self-comparison. The whole project is just a full journey, and I 100% recommend that you check it out. That's all for this week's Pop Recap. For more pop culture news, make sure you are subscribed to the official Pop Recap newsletter, which breaks down everything you need to know in film, television, theater, and music straight to your inbox every Sunday morning. Subscribe now at poprecap.beehive.com. That's poprecap.beehiiv.com. Now let's get into the topic for today, the Tonys. I think for a season that was so stacked, this was a pretty alright Tonys. The way I'm going to recap the night is just by sharing what I think were the highs of the night and what I think were the lows of the night. But first I gotta say, if you're following me on social media, then you saw while in New York, I made a TikTok predicting the winners for the best play, best musical, and best revival of a musical, and I actually accurately predicted all 3. Stereophonic won best play, Merrily We Roll Along won Best Revival of a Musical, and The Outsiders won Best Musical. But anyways, let's talk about the highlights. I think there were so many great wins last night. I'm a sucker for inspirational speeches, and one of my favorites of the night actually came from Keisha Lewis, who won Featured Actress in a Musical for her role in Hell's Kitchen. She talked in her speech about how exactly 40 years and 1 day before she won the award Sunday night, she began her Broadway career. So it took her 40 years before she got one of the highest honors in the industry. And that's just really proof that you never should give up, because you never know when things are going to break through for you. I also have to shout out Cara Young, who won for Featured Actress in a Play for her role in Pearly Victorious, and also Malia Joy Moon from Hell's Kitchen, who won for Lead Actress in a Musical. I loved both of their speeches as well, but shout out to Malia Joy Moon because she was only 21 years old, and she was the youngest winner of the night. She actually broke down in tears as soon as she heard her name called, and it was just so beautiful to see as she spoke about her dedication and just thanked her family for supporting her on her path. Like, you could tell that she was so grateful and just so in disbelief. I mean, like, the success do you have to be like 21 years old and win Lead Actress in a Musical at the Tonys? That's incredible. I'm happy for her. Congratulations to all of them. Other winners that I was super excited about, Jeremy Strong, who won for his role in An Enemy of the People. That means that he won an Emmy and a Tony in the span of a couple of months. I mean, 2024 is looking good for him. I also noticed something interesting that Will Brill, who won for Featured Actor in a Play, he's in Stereophonic. I noticed something interesting that he said in his speech. He was saying, like, thank you for casting a bunch of nobodies and taking a chance on us. And I think that's really interesting because when you think about it, like, I never knew Stereophonic to have any big names in that show. And a lot of the time, like, most recently, a lot of Broadway shows, they really swing into popularity or success by either being based on something known, like an IP project. So, for example, like a musical or play based off of a book that we already know, or a movie we already know, or it's a jukebox musical, or it's associated with the celebrity. And if not that, then it has like a celebrity in the show. And so I thought it was really interesting because that made me think about it. And I was like, wow, like Stereophonic is really an original show with people that aren't really super big household names in it, and it's resonated with so many people because it's just a really good show. And I thought that was really interesting because I didn't think about that. I was like, wow, like everybody's been talking about how great Stereophonic is, and everybody went to see it because they believed in the story of the show, and they knew that like it had to be talented people in it, of course. So I just thought that was kind of a standout for Stereophonic, is like the draw that it has, like it has to be good. And then I also have to shout out Jonathan Groff and Daniel Radcliffe, of course, for their wins of the night, for their roles in Merrily We Roll Along. Their energy and excitement for each other and their wins was just so fun to see. Like when Daniel won, Jonathan was crying in the audience. And then when Jonathan won, Daniel Radcliffe like ran up to him and gave him the biggest hug. Like it was really fun to see because you could tell, like, I was talking about this when I talked about Merrily We Roll Along on our last episode. Like all three of them, Lindsay Mendez included, like they work so well on stage, and it's probably because they have a good relationship off stage. And it's like Merrily wouldn't work without that strong chemistry, I feel like, between the cast members and just being able to pull that off. And so you can really see like they were super happy for each other. You can tell like over the past, what has it been, like almost 2 years that they've been doing this show together. They've really bonded and just put so much work into it. And this was like the final like payoff for it. I also didn't even realize that Jonathan Groff has never won a Tony Award. I feel like he's been in so much, but then at the same time not. I know he was in Little Shop of Horrors, Hamilton, and like Spring Awakening. Like I feel like he's been in the industry for so long. It never crossed my mind that he doesn't have a Tony until last night, which was crazy. But yeah, congratulations to Jonathan Groff. I think it's more than deserved for him. And he gave an amazing speech just kind of talking about his passion for theater. And you could just really see all of that like happiness shine through. Like he was very excited. And it was very deserved. I'd say another high for the night was that little bit that Josh Gad and Andrew Rannells did during the Tonys as part of like their little Gutenberg bit. I wouldn't complain if them two hosted the Tonys next year, because I saw somewhere that Ariana DeBose is stepping down from hosting after 3 years. And so now the door is open for somebody to host, and they have great chemistry. They've done 2 shows together. They're comedian people, and I think they would be great. That was like their audition, in the same way that like John Mulaney's little thing that he did at the Oscars or the Emmys, whichever one it was, when he did that little thing and everybody was like, he should be a host. This was their version of that. Now let's talk about my favorite performances of the night. I kind of want to do this based off of like which shows I was most interested in seeing before the Tonys versus which shows that I'm most interested in seeing after seeing their Tonys performance. And I gotta say, I have to shout out Water for Elephants for that one. I've been like back and forth over like my excitement and interest in seeing Water for Elephants. When it first got announced and I was seeing a lot of like the promo and preview stuff, I was like, yep, this is my most interested show of the season. And I kind of like procrastinated on seeing it, and I've kind of even bumped other shows up above it because I was really interested in it mainly for the circus and acrobat elements. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I should see like something else before I see this show. You guys, their Tonys performance was so good. It's definitely one of the favorites of the night. I mean, the song was really good, and I thought like Grant Gustin was great. It was well performed, but like the acrobat stuff is very captivating. I'm like convinced I need to see it, and I liked the music in it that they did. Like I don't see any reason for me not to see it. Like that really made me want to see it more and just moved it way up higher on my list. Another show that was completely bumped off my list was Suffs. And I think that Suffs had one of the best performances of the night as well. I think they did just like one song. I'm not like fully familiar with their soundtrack, but I think they were one of the only shows to do one song and not a medley. And I think it worked really well. And I loved that one song that they did. And I was like, okay, you know what? I had no clue really what kind of music or like the type of music was in Suffs, like what genre specifically. And hearing that, I kind of was able to pinpoint a little bit that, yeah, this is the type of musical that I probably would enjoy. So shout out to Suffs. They'd probably be in my top 5 performances of the night, and it definitely convinced me. It worked. I want to see it now. Merrily We Roll Along, obviously, is another one. That was an extremely solid performance. I mean, very, very solid. They sang Old Friends, which is pretty much the same song that they've been doing for a lot of like their televised performances as well. But they also did involve the ensemble cast members in the beginning and I think the very end as well. But Jonathan Groff, Lindsay Mendez, Daniel Radcliffe, we know they're like extremely great talents. I've talked about how great they are on the last episode we did here. So obviously I loved that performance. Maybe it made me want to see it again, but you know, I've already seen that, so I can't really judge it on my being convinced into seeing it. It closes in a few weeks, which is very unfortunate. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed Merrily, so that also makes my top 5. And then my last 2 spots, The Outsiders. And I'd say this is like the one that I really can't be changed on my influence, because The Outsiders is actually my most anticipated show to see. And this just made me want to see it more. It was a medley. I think the second song they sang, I did see that they performed that one before on like Good Morning America or something, because I was familiar with that one. And I thought that the first 2 songs were really great. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, what everybody's talking about, the Rumble scene. I really was not expecting to see the Rumble scene at the Tonys, because it is what everybody's been saying is like this big moment that like is one of the best parts of the show, and that's kind of like the thing that you don't really want to spoil. But at the same time, I think they showed just enough of it to really tease the audience like, wow, that was really great choreography. It was really good. I mean, they even had like the rain. Like, The Outsiders performance was phenomenal, and I think really cemented why it is the best musical this year. And I'm super convinced, as I already was, that I want to see The Outsiders next. Love the Rumble scene. Shout out to the Rumble scene. If you watch one performance from the Tonys, watch The Outsiders. Now, I saved this last performance that makes my top 5 of the night for last, because it's the most divisive one, and it's extremely divisive on the internet. You probably know what I'm talking about, because I'm saying it's divisive, and I'm talking about Cabaret. I've been interested in Cabaret for a long time. Cabaret was very successful on the West End over in London. The critics loved it over here. It came over to the US from the UK. The critics did not love it over here. As you see, it didn't really win any awards last night. And when it premiered, it got pretty mixed reviews. That does not deter me. The performance, I thought it was great when I watched it. And then I got on Twitter and I got on TikTok, and everybody was like, ooh, what was that performance? I'm very confused, you guys. I thought the point of Cabaret is that they're supposed to be freaky like that. Like, I thought that was the point, is he's supposed to be creepy. That's literally the point, right? I mean, I don't like to spoil, and Cabaret is a classic, so forgive me for not knowing a lot about Cabaret, because I haven't had an opportunity to go see it anywhere. But I thought that was the point, is that they're supposed to be like very unique people. You know what I mean? Like, is different. And I thought that, Eddie Redmayne did a good job when he was crawling across the floor, though. That performance literally was like, okay, yeah, I want to see it more. I want to see it more now. Like, I want to know what's going on here. I think it's very intriguing. It like draws you in. Like, you have to see it. So I'm even more interested in seeing Cabaret. Y'all can hate on Cabaret if you want, but I won't be one to hate on Cabaret. So yeah, those are my top 5 performances of the night. I guess in no specific order. I kind of ranked them in the order of like, I didn't want to see this at first and now I do, to I was already going to see this. So yeah, but if I had to rank them, let me think. I'd probably put Water for Elephants at 5. You know what? I'd probably put it the way I just said it. But switch The Outsiders and Merrily. Bump those up. So yeah, it would be like Water for Elephants number 5, Suffs number 4, Cabaret number 3. I don't know, you guys. The Outsiders and Merrily are tied for the first spot. I don't know which one is better. Yeah. But all of those were probably the most solid performances of the night for me. Now let's respectfully move into what I think were the lower points of the night. Respectfully, I think Ariana DeBose can be a very fun Tonys host, but this was probably my least favorite opening number from her. I thought that the song was kind of boring, like it just wasn't a good start to me. And she always does the thing where she like stops and starts speaking inspirationally to the crowd or whatever. And I love when she does that, but I thought for a second she was going to break out in a BAFTAs like rap. I really was hoping she was. Like, she said something like, and let's like congratulate all our first time Tony Awards. And she was like, let's congratulate all our first time Tony Award nominees in the room. And I thought she was going to start like running them down like a rap. I was like, okay, come on now. She's so funny, but definitely the energy of a theater kid. This just wasn't my favorite opening number, unfortunately. I wish I had like maybe more fun nods to the nominees or something. It was kind of like a performance that was very vague and didn't really tie into the Tonys or the year in theater at all. The second negative, I think, is, I don't even think it's really a negative to say. It kind of ties into what I was just saying about Stereophonic and how it feels like everything is tied to like a celebrity or an IP project and not like something that could stand on its own as its own art piece. And it's just something that like I noticed a bit more prominently last night for sure. It's just like how many celebrities and IP are involved. It just seemed like maybe this is because I read this one article that is being like drawn to my attention. I saw this article from the New York Times, and it was basically called like Broadway's pop era, and it broke down just how many like Broadway musicals either are on the way or are already on Broadway that have like a musician that's not like a Broadway musician tied to it. So like whether that be a jukebox musical, or like for example Romeo and Juliet is coming and Jack Antonoff is doing the music, or like The Great Gatsby is coming and Florence Welch from Florence and the Machine is doing the music. You know what I mean? Like somebody that's not like, that hasn't been in the Broadway or the musical scene is doing like music for Broadway type of thing. And the article just kind of talked about like whether or not it's new, which is really not a new thing, and just like how often it's happening, which it's happening a lot for sure. And like it's not a bad thing. Like I'm saying, like I don't know why I'm putting it in the negative section really. It's just like something that I noticed, I guess. And so another example would be from last night. Well, it actually happened twice with The Who's Tommy, the guy from The Who, Pete Townsend. He came out and he introduced The Who's Tommy, but then he also like performed a little bit with the cast. And then we saw it also with Hell's Kitchen, who I actually thought that was another really strong performance of the night. Just to talk about those performances really quickly, I thought The Who's Tommy was a very good performance, and I really loved like the song that they performed and everything, and I liked the choreography. The reason it didn't make my top 5 is primarily because I went into watching that not knowing what The Who's Tommy is about, and then after it ended, I still didn't know what The Who's Tommy was about, and I just didn't really get like any sense of like the story or any real sense of like, oh my gosh, I want to see that. You know what I mean? And that's how I did my rankings. But it was a solid performance. That was a solid performance. And then Hell's Kitchen was also a very great performance, but it also did the thing that I'm talking about where, well, first let me start off. When Hell's Kitchen was first announced and talked about, I did think that Alicia Keys was going to be in it. I thought it was like a limited run theatrical residency where she's like performing and there's like dancing and cool staging and stuff, like a little residency moment. But it's not. She's using her music in it, and then I think she helped with like the creative process and stuff like that. So what happened with the Hell's Kitchen performance is that they did a little bit of a medley with the cast. This was a very long performance, by the way. It was pretty lengthy. I think one of the longest of the night. And so it started off like a normal performance like everyone else's, and they did like a whole medley with the cast, which I thought was very strong. And then Alicia Keys came out and she performed, and she did her song Empire State of Mind. And then the big surprise of the night was that Jay-Z was a part of the performance. But Jay-Z wasn't even in the room, I don't think. And it might have been pre-taped, that part. But Jay-Z did perform as well with Alicia Keys. And so I guess that's kind of why I put it in the negative, is I did not dislike this performance, but it is causing a lot of controversy. And a lot of people are discussing it online. The decision to have Alicia Keys and Jay-Z perform with the cast of Hell's Kitchen. A lot of people are saying that their addition to the performance did two things negatively for the production and their performance. And one is that Alicia Keys and Jay-Z performing together overshadowed the cast of Hell's Kitchen and their performance. And then two, it's likely to confuse tourists who are going to show up to Hell's Kitchen thinking that at the least Alicia Keys is in the musical, like how I was saying that I thought at first, and she's not, obviously. But people may watch the performance and for whatever reason think that's not true. And so I kind of agree with both of those points a little bit. I thought the performance was great. It was definitely interesting to see. Like, thank you for giving us this content. I can't remember the last time I saw Alicia Keys and Jay-Z perform that song together. They were in New York. Like, it made sense and I enjoyed it. It was a fun time. But at the same time, like, I don't know, they're not really in the show. So it was kind of different, but that was kind of another example of what I'm saying. And then I didn't realize like how many celebrities were involved with these shows, because then you had Hillary Clinton. She came out for Suffs, which I knew she was a producer for that, but yeah, she came out for Suffs. And then Angelina Jolie, she was a producer for The Outsiders, and she came out for that. So it kind of like put into perspective like how many big names are behind some of these shows that you don't even realize. I mean, Alicia Keys is probably the most known one because her music is also in the show, and like The Who's Tommy, it's literally The Who's Tommy. But like The Outsiders and like Suffs, there are some big names hidden behind there that you wouldn't even really know. My third and final negative, which is probably the only one out of these three that's a negative about the show, is that I can't even remember if it was like this last year. I'm pretty sure it wasn't, because I did like a little game where I like filled out my predictions and stuff, and all the awards were on there. So my question is, why were so many technical and creative awards given out during a pre-show? Because Sunday was Father's Day and I didn't watch the pre-show. I was out with my dad and we literally came back like 10 minutes before the show started. But I didn't really appreciate that a lot of the important awards were given out during the pre-show. Like, isn't best book super important? I think they did best score during the actual taping, and I understand it's like a time constraint type of thing, but I feel like some of the technical stuff would have been nice to see, in the main broadcast. Like, I know for a fact they did like some of these last year during the live tape, so I don't know why it changed this year, but they definitely did them separate this year. And so I was like, like best book, they did best score, but then they didn't do best book. And those are kind of like, I feel like the same, because then you put them together and then best musical, But I guess it wasn't important enough to be in the main broadcast in terms of like the chopping block, but I would have liked to have seen that. So I'd say that was my last like little downside about the way that the Tonys were this year. All in all, I thought it was a pretty solid Tony Awards. It was a very, very stacked season. It was a lot to take in, a lot of new musicals, a lot of new plays, a lot of people, like different shows that just didn't even make the cut because there were simply so many. Like, that doesn't mean that they weren't good. And yeah, I thought I really enjoyed it. I came out with some new shows that I definitely want to see, and I saw like some of my favorite shows and my favorite actors that I did get to see in certain shows get what they deserved, their awards, and so that was really nice to see as well. Let me know what your thoughts were on the Tonys, what your favorite performance was, who you wish won an award, who were you happy to see won an award. I want to hear from you, and let me know on social media. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, tell a friend and make sure you let me know by leaving a review and following the podcast. As a reminder, at Fan Fave, it's all about the love for entertainment and the joy of being a fan. Fan Fave is active with even more content on social media, so make sure you don't miss anything. It's at Fan Fave Media everywhere. So connect with me because I want to hear from you, my fellow fans of pop culture. I'll see you next Tuesday when we'll dive into another aspect of pop culture. Thanks for listening and see you soon.